And you're watching the Communicators on C-SPAN. This is our weekly look at telecommunications issues and policy. We are on location in Boston for the 2012 Cable Show. This week we want to show you some more of the interviews that we conducted here. Well, now joining us on the Communicators is the president of ESPN, co-chairman of Disney Entertainment, John Skipper. How do people watch ESPN?
Well, our point of view is they can watch it any way they want. Most people prefer to watch it in their living room on a great big HD set, but we're focused on making sure that if their best available screen is a computer or a mobile device, an iPad, an iPhone, an Android device, they can watch it anywhere they want. We hope they watch it relentlessly. One thing we do know how they watch it live. 99.4% of our viewership is live, which I think is among the things that really makes sports stand out in today's market. It's a unique product. You have to watch it live. There's passion around it, and we're trying to facilitate watching it anywhere.
So how do you facilitate that? What kind of technology do you use to get that everywhere?
Among our most important priorities right now is the Watch ESPN application, which is our version of authenticated television. So assuming you have a paid television subscription, you can authenticate your Watch ESPN application and watch ESPN networks on whatever device you want to watch on. And the quality is spectacular. I mean, it's HD quality. You can sit out in your backyard, you can wander off into the woods, you can be at a dinner party, you can be at a wedding, and look down at your device and watch your favorite game.
Now, is that all done by apps?
It's an application-based process.
Is there a revenue stream involved there for you guys?
Well, look, the most important revenue stream for us are the fees we get paid by distributors for the value we create for them. This prolongs that and expands that relationship. So that's the most important revenue application. We do run a separate stream of commercials into each different device or platform so that we can isolate, and on computers, we can put on an isolated stream of commercials on mobile devices, and since those are very upwardly mobile, no pun intended, mostly young male audience, they're very attractive. So we do think the financial proposition here is very attractive as well.
Well, now, John Skipper, we're here at the Cable Show in Boston, and one of the issues is Dish Network's new Hopper. And is that something you're worried about? Something that you can skip the commercials?
Well, look, it's from a Walt Disney Company perspective, where on ABC Network you can't produce those shows without the revenue from the advertising. Yes, it concerns us of facilitating technology that allows you to easily skip commercials. From an ESPN point of view, you heard me say before, 99.4% of our viewing is live. So the Hopper is fairly inconsequential to ESPN. Again, I've got different levels of concern for different networks, but for the ESPN point of view, it makes live only more valuable.
Most of the folks that we talk to here on the Communicators on C-SPAN are policymakers or politicians, people worried about regulation, et cetera. How much time in your business do you spend worrying about Washington or thinking about regulations?
Well, I've been in this job just about 5 months. We're very well served at the ESPN by the Disney Washington office, headed up by Richard Bates. But I have become engaged in the process. I'm going down actually next Tuesday to meet the 2 new commissioners for the FCC. They've served us well. We have good relationship with them, and my expectation is to be involved with them and with key members of the House and the Senate where issues of communication are managed.
What's your background?
My background is book and magazine publishing professionally. I grew up in North Carolina. I'm a literature major from the University of North Carolina and Columbia University. I got in the magazine publishing business. Moved to Walt Disney to work in books and magazines, moved to ESPN to start ESPN Magazine. So that was the transition over to ESPN, managed their internet and digital businesses, ran the Ed Sales Group, and for the last 5 years ran the content division of ESPN, and then had the great good fortune to be in what is clearly one of the better jobs of our time, managing ESPN.
Mr. Skipper, I read a statistic here at the Cable Show that 98% of viewing is still done, and you mentioned it as well, living room, big HD TV.
Right.
Why are we spending so much time and attention looking at other devices, other ways to watch television?
Well, in our case, we have always been very well served by the mantra of serving the fan. So while the audience may now be somewhat cutting edge, it's probably indicative of future trends. It's going to happen. I mean, you're not always going to be in your living room. It's particularly acute when it's sports and you want to watch whether you're in your living room or not. So my guess is it's a little more than 2% for sports. We did the World Cup in 2010. We made the network available across computers, mobile devices, and 1 out of 3 people viewed on a device other than that HD set. So sports is the leading edge of this. And so for us, it's pretty clear why we would be interested in doing this. I think other forms of entertainment will not be at the leading edge, but it will matter to them eventually. And it's a way to continue your business, right? You do not want to be flanked by forms of entertainment which are watched on different screens and different environments. We produce the best product in the world on television in terms of entertainment. We just want to extend the opportunity to view it.
What about the growth in Spanish language programming for you guys?
Well, it's been a priority for us. I mean, we've launched a series of platforms under the brand ESPN Deportes. We obviously understand the demography of this country and where it's going with the rapid rise of the Hispanic population. We want to be the home for those fans. Hispanic fans are very good sports fans, and we've increasingly concentrated on the sports that matter to them, having Hispanic talent on our air, serving them in English language and Spanish. We recently bought an FM signal in New York, and the most attention was around, you're going to move ESPN from AM to FM. Just as important as we're going to launch ESPN Deportes on the AM signal. So it's a big priority for us. We understand we need to serve those fans.
Social media. How does ESPN use social media, and are you finding it to be effective, whether it's tweets or Facebook, etc.?
We generally find social media to be complementary to what we do. Sports is inherently social, so people are tweeting about games they're watching, they're liking things on Facebook, they're including in the wall their comments about games. So we try to work with Facebook, with Twitter. We ran in Facebook the first live content where you could watch games on ESPN3 on Facebook. We're the second most retweeted media brand at ESPN, so we're pretty engaged with those guys. I'll have a Silicon Valley tour here in the second week of June where we're going around and meeting to make sure we're helping serve their needs and make sure that we're sort of working as partners.
John Skipper, you said that you were going to meet with the 2 new FCC commissioners, Amit Pai and Jessica Rosenworcel. What are you going to talk to them about?
We just want to provide them with our point of view about where things stand, understand where they're coming from and what their concerns are and what their issues might be so that we can have a good dialogue about what we do. And generally, again, Commissioner Janikowski has been engaged with us before, Michael Powell before him. We've always been engaged because the commission is important to us. We want to make sure we understand their point of view and vice versa.
And finally, if you would, give us a snapshot of ESPN, employees, revenue, etc.
ESPN, it's about a 33-year-old company based in Bristol, Connecticut, about 7,000 employees. And over the course of the 33 years, lots of great work by lots of people have established ESPN as clearly the preeminent sports media brand in this company. And I think we're also distinguished by the variety and breadth of our platforms, right? We have 7 24/7 linear television networks, a broadband television network, digital platforms with ESPN.com, Grantland.com, the mobile platforms with mobile ESPN. I mean, we want to sort of reach fans wherever they are, and we sort of think of from old media to new media, whether it be print with a magazine, ESPN radio, ESPN on ABC, broadcast television, all the way to new digital applications. We want to serve fans across all those kind of platforms. And I think that's a distinguishing characteristic.
Do you consider yourself a cable channel anymore?
We consider cable television to be the core of what we do. And we'll always remember that's kind of what has got us here, right? Is serving fans there and then making sure when they wanted to consume sports on other platforms that we were there as well. But there's no doubt that that's the core of our business.
And this is the Communicators on C-SPAN, and we've been talking with the president of ESPN, John Skipper. And now on the Communicators, we're joined by John King, chief political correspondent for CNN, of course, host of John King USA. Mr. King, how has your job changed since the last presidential election?
Oh, wow. In one way, I could say my job's exactly the same, right? I report the campaigns, I report the news, I cover the big issues in the country. However, because of technological changes, how we do that is changing. And not only how it changes us, but how they do that, if you will. If you look at what the Obama campaign is doing, if you look at what the Romney campaign is doing, if you look at what the two parties are doing, if you go out at the state level at some of these state races, actually you find the innovations out there, and then the bigger campaigns copy them. So the technology explosion, I used to be an AP wire guy with my pencil and my notebook and my laptop, and that was all you needed. Now I have this silly thing called the magic wall, and it's wired to the live election data when it comes in. It's wired to every database in the country. So I want the census information. What's the Latino population here, this state as opposed to that state? So in some ways I'm doing the same thing I've done for 30 years, but boy oh boy is it very different.
Talk a little bit about that magic wall. Who developed that? How long has it been around? I mean, are we going to see something new on the magic wall in 2012?
We are going to do some new things on the wall in 2012 because of access speed. The speeds are faster. You can get more information. Computers can handle more data. We've become smarter about how to segregate and then decide what we want and how to integrate certain things, whether it's demographics with turnout, past elections with current census data. So you can do a lot more studying and fair, objective projections based on facts, not based on opinions. It's an amazing piece of technology, originally developed by just a computer science genius, but his first commercial client was the Pentagon and the CIA. It was developed first for military use, and my old boss was at an event like this, but a military convention, not a cable industry convention, where people who do defense industry things go looking for new tanks and new bombs and new weapons, and guess what? New radios and new TV screens and new ways to communicate. And they use it at the CIA and in the military. Imagine the raid on the bin Laden compound. Well, they have the map of the compound here. They have available military assets on another screen. They have the live feed off the helmet of the special ops guys going in, coming back, so that if they have to change the plan, if the helicopter crashes and they have to figure out, can we get all those guys out on the other one, they can do it in real time on this map and this board that they can use to move things around. And so my boss saw it and said, wait a minute, I can do some business with that in the political sphere. And it's a fascinating, I always joke, some people think it's a toy. If you use it as a toy, you're making a mistake. Technology can be fun in toys, that's why we have games, but it's a great tool. Our job is to give people information and to make it approachable to them. And so if you're trying to talk about the Electoral College, if you're trying to talk about the white versus black versus Latino, male versus women, populations of a state. If you're a guy in a box talking about that, it's one thing. If you can say, come with me, and you take them to a state, and you show them pictures, and you bring them in, and they see the data, or they watch the vote results come in, and Hillary Clinton was just winning that county, but now Barack Obama's ahead. If you take them there, it's a way to take them there live through the technology, which makes them feel closer. Part of our job now is to interact with our consumers.
So when people meet you, is that the first thing they bring up anymore, is the magic wall?
It is, I always joke that I'm Toy Boy. But people do say I like the wall, I like the map, and some of it's funny, but a lot of it is actually the way I was skeptical, number one, that I was to learn the technology. I was not by nature a great innovative tech guy because I'm old school, but I've had to learn myself, and I'm fascinated to learn. I just wasn't sure I was good enough to communicate on television. But when in 2008, you would run into people, and they would say, thank you for explaining that to me, or that's where I live. You said this was the swing county in Colorado. That's where I live. And the questions people were asking me were smart, data-based or demographic-based questions. I said, you know what, this is working. People are actually feel closer to the information.
John King, how are Barack Obama and Mitt Romney using technology today for their campaigns, social media, et cetera?
in some ways the same, in other ways, one of the great advantages of the Obama campaign not having a Democratic primary challenge is that they have quietly, they're spending about $1 million a month on polling. That helps them study the American people. That's using focus group technology, and then they combine all that data. They take the polling data, and then they know they've bought everything. They know everything about you. They have your credit card data. They know where you live. They have your voter registration data. Any publicly available piece of data, both campaigns have. And so they build this database, and they decide, how can we move you? You're an independent voter. We know you've sometimes voted Republican, sometimes voted Democrat. How can we get you? And so if you took 10 people in this room and sat them down at 10 laptops, logged onto the same website, if that was their laptop, meaning it's identifiable to where they're going, they'll get different ads. Depending, not all of them, but depending on who they are, they will see a different Barack Obama ad on the New York Times website or on their Denver Post website, because the campaigns are that good. If you have an IP address, they target you, and they do it based on your demographics. In social media, it used to be they had to do everything through free media was the most important thing to them. Come on C-SPAN, come on CNN, do a news event that generated news coverage on the nightly news. Now, they do some of that, but they're less reliant on that, which is why sometimes they push us back. They don't want us to ask the questions. They want to be able to send a video where Mitt Romney sends a tweet or the president sends a tweet, a little video link, and you get it that way. They prefer to, they call us the filter, sometimes they call us the barrier. They prefer to go around us if they can, and technology now allows them to do that in ways that we have to acknowledge. They can communicate with a large number of people without the traditional news media in a way they couldn't 2 years ago, 5 years ago, and especially 20 years ago. That's part of the campaign.
Is Mitt Romney using technology at the same level as Barack Obama?
I would say no, but they're not that far behind. They have the capability. The Republicans, they learn from each other every time. It's fascinating in the sense that, Howard Dean, when he raised all that money on the internet, everyone said, oh, really? You can do politics on the internet? The Obama campaign took it to a next level and said, we're not just going to raise money, we're going to organize. We're going to have people have town halls and virtual town halls, and they're going to reach out and touch people and feel people, and then we're going to turn them out that way too. And the Republicans have quickly come in and studied this. They haven't been as innovative for us to see, because the Democrats won the last campaign. And so you say, well, the Democrats are doing it better. The Republicans have the same technology. They have not proven yet that they can use it as effectively. But the Romney campaign's working on some, in terms of election dynamics and turnout, reaching out to people and organizing. The Republican National Committee now integrating with the Romney campaign. They know what they're doing. Now we have to see if they can deliver on Election Day. And
John King, are these lessons being learned down the line, Congress, senators, governors, local elections?
Some are better than others, obviously. If you look at, and we tend to overgeneralize, saying younger candidates are more open to technological advances than older candidates. But if you go back to the last campaign, Chuck Grassley had one of the most memorable ads, an older senator from Iowa who had an ad where it opened with two senior citizens, two women sitting around the table, said, I hear Chuck Grassley has a Twitter. And the ladies think that that's some kind of a disease or something. And it's very funny, and it's humor that then brings you to social media. And one of the most fascinating things to me is when you see the iPods, the iPads, and technology, you think younger people are going to love this. Visit a senior center anywhere in America. Older voters, who are the most reliable voters, are now much more technologically savvy than they were 10 years ago. Why? It's the only way to talk to their grandchildren. Their grandchildren will only text them. They don't take telephone calls. Maybe they don't have a landline at home. And so, by force of nature, what's most important in your life? Talking to my grandchildren? They have become technologically savvy. So to think of this for any campaign as just targeting younger voters is wrong. Because that might have been true 5 years ago or 10 years ago, not anymore. And if you go around the country, you see different campaigns are better at it, but they all learn from each other very quickly. It's like any competitive business. Someone's doing something right, you borrow their idea.
Twitter, Facebook, Google, old school in a sense. I mean, they've been around for a couple of years. What's new? What are you keeping your eye on?
All of those. Aggregation. You say they're new, but people are using them in different ways. I think that even Facebook, the campaigns do their Facebook pages. What I watch for is the niches, because I'm a demographic and an organizing guy. What fascinates me most is how do you turn people out? So how are they communicating in Spanish language? Are they communicating in the Spanish language different in the West than they are in the East? How are they communicating to older voters? Is Mitt Romney's message on Medicare, or the Tim Ryan budget plan, different in his social media and communications with them. That's what I look for to see. And it doesn't mean it's inconsistent. It doesn't mean it's, he's saying one thing to other people, one thing. It's what you emphasize. Now, sometimes you might catch any campaign in a, wait a minute, this and this, or in conflict. But sometimes it's just what do you emphasize, what do you put first? I study that because of the demographics and the turnout. And people use technology to do that. But it's the same thing. We talk about these new innovations. What are they about? In the old days, your union boss or your pastor or your social club person called you up or knocked on your door and asked you to get into a van and took you out to vote. Now they may tweet you or text you or email you or call you. It's the same thing, it's just done in a new way, and it's faster and it's more efficient. You walk into a campaign office 10 years ago, 30 volunteers lined up at tables, dialing the old-fashioned way or punching the numbers in and talking. You walk into campaign offices now, they're quiet, and you think, well, this campaign has no energy. And then you realize, no, actually, everybody showed up this morning, they gave them each a cell phone, and they're doing this at home. They're doing they give them a list, or they give them a disc, or they give them a website to log on to, and they do all that at home. So the campaigns are now all over the place. And when I travel the country, it's one of the things I do when I go into whether it's a congressional candidate or mayoral candidate, just stop in and see how are you using new technology to do what is essentially the oldest school tool in elections, grabbing people, motivating them, and getting them to vote.
Do telecommunications issues move the political needle? Privacy, piracy, cybersecurity. Do people care?
Yes. Look at the Ron Paul campaign. Do they care enough to win an election? He hasn't proven that. But when you show up at the rallies, some people joke all those young people show up because he wants to legalize marijuana. Well, you know what, maybe some of them do, but they care about internet privacy. And Ron Paul is to keep the government out of this business. No question. There's no question, and that is a generational divide, I think largely, because younger people, I have two teenagers. They've been doing this all their life. I mean, they have something in their hand, whether it's a video game module or their PDA, their phone, however they're communicating. It matters to them because it has been their life. And so absolutely. Have they reached a critical mass where you say government role in the internet is going to decide an election? Haven't seen that one yet. But is technology and privacy and Big Brother a concern? You bet it is.
And we've been talking here on The Communicators with Chief Political Correspondent for CNN, John King. Thank you, Mr. King.
Peter, thank you.
And now on The Communicators, we want to introduce you to Phil Meeks. He's a Senior Vice President at Cox Communications. In fact, he's Senior Vice President of Cox Business. Mr. Meeks, what is it that you do at Cox Communications?
I have overall responsibility for Cox Business, which is the B2B communications arm of Cox Communications. So our core business is providing telecommunications services to small businesses. We've had significant growth over the last several years. We're a $1.2 billion revenue stream. Just in terms of a frame of reference, again, we're part of Cox Communications. Cox Communications is a $9 billion overall enterprise. So we're 1.2 billion of that 9 billion. But I think an important point is we've had significant growth trajectories in our business, and we're contributing a significant amount of the overall revenue growth of Cox Communications.
Cable is kind of a mature industry.
Right.
How is it that you find new revenue streams? How do you find growth?
And that's really what Cox Business is all about. That's the way that Cox Communications determined how we diversify our business and find new markets to grow in. And interestingly enough, we're certainly the first MSO to move into the commercial space. We've been at this a long time. We've been in this side of the business for almost 20 years. We began doing business in our Southern Virginia office, again, 20 years ago. And a really smart person had a great idea then that said, okay, we're building infrastructure to serve residential neighborhoods and homes. And that was about the time that high-speed internet became an important element of a consumer experience. But we were passing businesses along the way as we were building infrastructure to get to those homes and neighborhoods. And a really smart person 20 years ago said, why don't we peel off some of this infrastructure, repurpose this, provide high-speed internet services to commercial customers, and make a little bit of money off the side of our desk. So about 12 years ago, we stood Cox Business up as a line of business. 12 years ago, we were less than $100 million in revenues. So we've grown from 100 million to 1.2 billion. And if you look into the future, by the end of year 2016, we're on track to be a $2 billion business.
Where did you find that growth? I mean, what was the product that was so enticing?
The products are really basic telecommunications products, hosted voice over IP platforms, high-speed internet access, where we began our business, is still a very important part of our business. Business video services is an important part of our product bundle as well. But the really important thing we're doing and what we're doing to grow market share is we're frankly taking small customers away from our competition. We are very, very focused on small businesses. As a matter of fact, this week is Small Business Appreciation Week, which coincides perfectly with the CABLESHOW here in Chicago, or in Boston. But we are very focused on the low-end small, medium business marketplace. Just as a frame of context there, 85% of our customers are companies that have 19 and fewer employees. So we thrive in this market. We have local people in local markets that do things for these customers that they value, that our competition doesn't. And again, as we talked about the products, we built specific product bundles that really resonate within the small business marketplace.
So you are using the bundling?
Yes, yes.
And are people responsive to that?
Yes, they've been responsive to more choice, and what we provide is really a competitive landscape and more choice in the commercial side of the business marketplace.
Mr. Meeks, are you finding that when you offer and in the bundling, does that include wireline telephone services?
Yes. A traditional bundle would be our high-speed internet platform, which is Cox Business Internet. Bundled with that, Voice Manager, which is our hosted voice over IP telecom offering, as well as business video. So think, for business video, think when you go to your doctor's office and you sit in the waiting room, flat screen TV with channel content being delivered there as well. That's in our core business, that SMB market, that's really our three product components.
Are they all regulated at different levels?
There are different regulatory aspects, particularly around video, because a lot of that regulatory policy is driven by the residential video original franchise operating agreements.
Phil Meeks, what are some of the new technologies that you are, besides the business video, is there high tech being offered?
Right, another part of our business that we haven't talked about is our wholesale business. And that's where we provide telecommunications services to other carriers. A big driver of that growth over the last several years has been wireless backhaul. We're exploring alternative and emerging technologies in that space, such as Wi-Fi offload for the large carriers. You heard about our Wi-Fi announcement that we rendered public yesterday. We're looking at Wi-Fi offload. We're looking at things like picocell technology, which is smaller microcell kind of technology. We're looking at distributed antenna systems. So on the wholesale side of our business, we're really looking at those emerging products and technologies. On the commercial side of our business, back to the small businesses, what we're exploring with earnest is how we move from being a pure telecom provider there to more of a managed communication service provider. So what we're looking at is simple managed communication services, which we're doing now. Voice Manager, our hosted voice over IP platform, is a managed communication service. But on our roadmap and our portfolio, we intend to move down the road of delivering applications to our customers' desktop. So think cloud computing, software as a service, infrastructure as a service, those types of technologies.
Is spectrum an issue that you worry about?
Pardon?
Spectrum an issue that you worry about in your work?
Not from the commercial side. What I'm worried about on my side is how we can build the right go-to-market strategies to continue to gain market share.
And very quickly, give us the snapshot of Cox Communications. How many employees, how many markets?
We are in 18 markets around the country. And Cox Business overlays right on top of that old residential footprint. So Cox Communications is in 18 markets around the country. We are a $9 billion business, have local employees in those markets, just like on the commercial side, as I was mentioning earlier. We had that same local presence in the markets we do business in. We are very involved and engaged in the community, and that's frankly something from a commercial perspective we can draft behind and dovetail behind. We have that name recognition, that credibility, that goodwill in the local markets we do business. So it's very easier for us to position ourselves as a communications alternative in the commercial space.
And Cox Communications still privately held, headquartered in Atlanta?
Yes, privately held, headquartered in Atlanta, absolutely.
Phil Meeks, Senior Vice President, Cox Business, thank you for being on The Communicator.
Great, thank you.
And you've been watching C-SPAN's The Communicators program. Every week, we look at telecommunications issues and policy. This program airs Saturday at 6:30 p.m. on C-SPAN and Monday, 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. on C-SPAN 2. If you want to watch any of the previous programs from the Cable Show or any communicators, you can go to cspan.org/communicators and watch them online.